Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our special coverage of the second day of the second phase of Egypt's parliamentary elections, bringing you the latest updates taking place here across the country in various polling stations. We are joined now by our colleague Nermeen Abdulrahman, who is currently in Mansoura City, the Kahle Governorate, to tell us about the latest developments taking place there in Mansoura. Good day to you, Nermeen.
Good afternoon, Hala. How are you?
Nermeen, how's the situation going in Mansoura right now?
Since we have started the second day of the parliamentary elections, Hala, the procedures are going that smooth regarding the voting process all over El Daqahliya, despite two situations. Number one, it was in Meet El Korama. This is a village of one of the candidates. There was a bomb there, and it was defused by the bomb experts without any casualties or damages. The second story of the day was the death of one of the voters. His name is Hisham Al-Adgham. He's 50 years old, and he died while he was on his way to cast his vote in the elections. Far from this, there were some rumors about shooting one of the candidates, but we had our contacts with the Ministry of the Interior's officials, and they refuted all these rumors, all the reports published on many sites on the internet. Also, one of the phenomena here in Daqahliya, it's women. Women from all ages, they are here to practice their political right and to choose the coming parliament, inshallah. Also, I was there among the voters who were keen to come and to participate. In Mansoura, it's a little bit tribal, I may say. People are divided into three sections. Number one, those who are going to vote for the candidates who are coming from political families, families with history in practicing politics, or families which has members of the parliaments for years and years. The others are following the instructions of public figures in Mansoura. Topping the list is Professor Dr. Muhammad Ghunaim, the great scientist who is here in Daqahliya, a public figure. So Muhammad Ghunaim is supporting X or Y, so X and Y are going to work for the best interest of the people. The third did their homework, or they tried their best to know the details about the candidates they are going to vote for, also for the best interest of the coming parliament. To you, Hala.
Okay, Nermeen, so basically there were a little bit of violations, two major stories of the day, that a bomb that
Hala,
has been
I
defused.
can't hear you well, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just recapping what you said, Nermeen. I'm just recapping what you said, but I would like to ask you now, we are approaching the second part of the day, or the evening part of the day. Did you notice a more or higher turnout by the voters rather than the early hours of the morning?
Hala, I do have a real difficulty to hear you.
Okay, I will try to ask you again, Nermeen.
Okay, Hala, let's seize the opportunity to have, as I told you before, that women are here a phenomena. It's not only about voting, it's also about who are shouldering the responsibility of the supervision of the voting process here. We are in one of the committees here in Muhammad Amin El-Baz school in El Daqahliya, and the one responsible for the voting process here, the counselor we have, is Councillor Dina Munir. Councillor Dina Munir, thank you very much for being with us on Nile TV International. سيادة المستشارة ممكن تقول لنا سير العملية الانتخابية في اليوم الثاني؟
How is the electoral process taking place through the second day? As for the electoral process, is going on very well. Everything is fine, as you can see. The turnout is average, or a bit more than average. There is a full cooperation because all are keen on making the electoral process a transparent one. No representatives of the candidates would be able to get in without a proxy, and of course there is inspection also, and a number of observers. And as what about the turnout? It ranges between 40 to 50%. As I said yesterday, it's going to exceed this figure by the end of the day. And of course, it's mostly elderly and women who have come to vote. Since yesterday, we have seen that a lot of human stories that have took place, and you were keen on telling us some of them. Would you please relate some of these stories? What happened yesterday was that there was here a very old man who's about 75 years old or 80 years old, and he came, he provided me with his ID, and he wanted to select the candidate he wanted after we gave him the cards for the proportional list and for the individual candidate, and all of a sudden he cried. He went on crying. I asked him, why are you crying? Did anyone force you to come here and vote? He went on crying, telling me, I'm here for Egypt. You select for me who would be best for Egypt. I do not know who is good. You select who would serve Egypt. Of course, he went on praying to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. This was what he did. He went on crying for about 10 minutes. And we kept telling him, calm down, who do you want to elect? He said, I know no one. I'm here just for Egypt. And we have met a lot of such incidents. A lot of elderly people came here wishing only to serve Egypt and tell Egypt. And there was here a lady with a hijab, and she had the niqab on, and she came out from an accident, and she said, my two sons are in the army. She said, select someone from the army and the judiciary for me. I told her, no, I cannot select for you. I kept telling her, you should select by luck or by chance. She insists on this. I want someone who represents the army and the judiciary. My sons are in the army, and I want someone who would serve this country and one who is trustworthy. Thank you very much. Of course, these are unforgettable moments in the history of Egypt. Thank you. Thank you.
Days in the modern history of Egypt, and we all hope that it's going to be for the best interest of our people now and every then.
Nermin Abdurrahman from Mansoura City, the Kahle Governorate, thank you very much for the updates. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short break, then we'll be right back to resume our special coverage of Egypt's parliamentary elections.
سلام. امال ايه؟ لازم يمدوا سن المعاش للناس الكفاءات اللي زينا. كفاءات؟ راحت عليك يا كفاءات.
القرار لو كان قراري كنت عملت قسم فاشن في الجامعه.
صح. عارفه حل مشكله السحابه السوداء دي ايه؟ والله احنا كنا محتاجين قانون المرور ده من زمان.
على الاقل حتى يسوي لنا نزودها ربع جنيه.
الا لو عملوا قانون يمنع استيراد الكاوتش.
انا مش فاهمه ليه ما يقسموهاش، يوم للعربيات الفردي ويوم للعربيات الزوجي.
سنة 6 دي لازم تتلغي.
المهم اننا نستغل طاقة الشباب.
بقى لو مسكون اتحاد الكورة لكنا وصلنا كاس العالم من زمان.
طبعا صوتك مهم، لكن علشان يكون مفيد مكانه الحقيقي في الصندوق.
Welcome back. Now we are joined by our colleague Abir Mitwali, who is currently at the Higher Election Committee to tell us more about the monitoring of the HAC to the electoral process. Abir, good day to you.
Yes, Hala, good afternoon. We are here in the High Election Committee in Madinat Nasr, their headquarters here in the State Information Service in Egypt. Councillor Omar Marwan just held a press conference less than 2 hours ago, and he stated the following. They received 75 complaints so far. 5 judges have been changed due to health problems. Some violations were reported, and there was a delay in the opening of 24 polling stations, but they handled it so far. He also said that the Egyptian expats voting reached 37,100 voters until now. The Egyptian expats finished the voting in the U.S. The last city was the U.S., and they finished it. There is another press conference to be held today at 9 p.m. to update us by the latest developments on the ground. Hela?
Okay, Abir, were there any reports of irregularities reported to the HEC today?
Yes, he said there were 75 violations or irregularities, breaches. He said that some voters were clashing, a candidate and his sister clashed with some voters outside the polling stations. There's also another violation, it was clashes between some candidates.
Were there any violations regarding the campaigning itself? Were there any reports of campaigning inside the polling stations?
He didn't say in the press conference about these violations, but maybe in the other one they were reported.
Okay, Abir, now what about monitoring the situation? How is the HEC currently monitoring the situation?
Sorry, Hala, I can't hear you.
How can the HEC monitor the situation?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
How is the Higher Electoral Committee monitoring the situation now all over the country?
The Electoral Committee is monitoring the elections through the operation room here in the SIS headquarters in Madinat Nasr. They have one big operation room monitoring main operation room here and many operation rooms all over the 13 governorates that held the elections.
Okay, Abir Mitwalli from the Higher Election Committee, Nasr City, thank you very much for the updates. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short break and they will be right back. Stay with us.
Do you have what it takes? We're getting ready. Egypt's Parliament 2015. A strong parliament that represents the entire country. Share. Be part of determining Egypt's future.
Welcome back. Well, we are joined now over the phone by our colleague Mustafa Abdel Fattah, who is currently in northern Sinai to tell us more about the situation there. مساء الخير يا أستاذ مصطفى، ممكن تكلمنا على العملية الانتخابية النهاردة في شمال سيناء؟
How is the electoral process going on? As for the electoral process here in the North Sinai Governorate, we find that the turnout differs between the different cities in this governorate, Bi'r al-Abd, Al-Arish, and the Sheikh Zuwayed, Rafah, and Al-Hassana, and Nikad. All of these cities witnessed discrepancies in turnout during yesterday and today. And we find that in North Sinai, in Bi'r al-Abd and the Sheikh Zuwayed and the Rafah cities had witnessed high turnout, while Al-Arish had very limited turnout. This is the capital of North Sinai, and it has witnessed the least turnout. So up till now in North Sinai, the turnout is concentrated in these three cities we've mentioned, Bi'r al-Abd, Sheikh Zuwayed, and Rafah. Concerning the elections in general in this governorate, there are tightened security procedures undertaken by the army and the police, and they were taken in parallel to the electoral process to secure the polling centers and the citizens to make the parliamentary elections a success in North Sinai Governorate. Also, the operation room in North Sinai did not receive any complaints hampering the electoral process. All the complaints received have to do with the advertisements and the propaganda outside the polling centers, and they were moved by the police, in addition to a number of complaints about some disputes that took place between the supporters of the candidates, but they did not have any impact on the electoral process in this governorate. North Sinai Governorate in general has a number of people listed on the electoral lists that reach 234,000 on 4 districts. The first is Al-Arish, the second district is Central Sinai, Nikhil, and Al-Hassana, and the third is Bi'r al-Abd and Romana, and the fourth district is Rafah and Sheikh Zuwayed. As for the number of the parliamentary seats for North Sinai, 5 seats for the individual candidates. And as for the electoral process up till now, it is calm in light of intensified security measures. Mustafa, North Sinai Governorate, unlike the rest of the governorates, has witnessed a number of tensions due to the presence of some of the terrorist elements, especially in Al-Arish and Sheikh Zuwayed. Did this have any impact on the process in North Sinai? I did not get the question. I will repeat the question, Mr. Mustafa. North Sinai Governorate is a governorate, unlike the other governorates, is witnessing some tensions and disputes due to the presence of terrorist elements in the governorate. Did this have any impact on the electoral process in North Sinai?
Okay, it seems that we lost our correspondent Mustafa Abdel Fattah, who is currently in North Sinai. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short break, then we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Could be much higher than the first stage that we have seen.
Vous êtes à Chobra, une circonscription assez importante.
Mounir Mohamed Abdel Fahim, qui est le président.
Comme tu as dit, Donna, je me trouve maintenant au gouvernorat de Port Saïd.
From Al Mansour, the capital of this province. As you know,
in Port Said Governorate, we're having a total of 470,208.
Second phase in Khalil.
Yes, as we're approaching midday, the turnout.
From Shobra district. Hello, Riham. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to Yasmin. I'm joined this.
I'm in the constituency of Heliopolis. It's also.
It belongs to Al Sayyida Zainab constituency.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, in this very special edition of The World. Today with me, Al Hamalawi, we're going to bring you some of the main headlines reported in local and international newspapers until we get in contact with our correspondents throughout the country to update us on the latest developments of the second day of Egypt's parliamentary elections. And we'll start off with Al Ahram Online, which reported polls open on the second day in the second stage of parliamentary elections. Egypt opened polling stations for the second day Monday in Cairo and 12 other governorates for the second stage of its parliamentary elections. Voting will take place between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Public sector employees have been given a half day off to allow time for voting. The first day went smoothly, with turnout fluctuating depending on polling stations. Monday marks the last day before the runoffs on December the 1st and December the 2nd. Voting abroad was concluded on Sunday night. A number of 222 individual seats are contested by hundreds of candidates in the second round. For a party-based list, a total of 60 seats in 2 constituencies in Cairo and the Nile Delta are in play. The 13 governorates voting on Monday are Cairo, Qalyubiyya, Daqahliya, Menoufiya, Sharqiyya, Gharbiyya, Kafr al-Sheikh, Damietta, Port Said, Ismailiyya, Suez, North Sinai and South Sinai. Moving on to the Wall Street Journal, which reported the following headline: Egypt votes in second round of parliamentary elections. Polling stations opened for the second and final phase of Egypt's parliamentary elections as the country looks to elect its first representative body in 3 years. Civilians in 13 constituencies voting have 2 days to cast their ballots to determine the winners of the 282 seats in the 596-member assembly. Final tallies won't be counted until after runoff elections on December the 1st and the 2nd. About 27% of those eligible participated in the first round last month. Egypt State Television showed footage of Mr. Sisi casting his vote in the upscale Cairo district of Heliopolis. And this brings us to the third headline, which reports Sisi votes in Egypt's parliamentary elections. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi cast his ballot in the Cairo district of Heliopolis on Sunday as the second stage of the country's parliamentary elections got underway. This is the first time Sisi has voted in a parliamentary election. A career military officer, Sisi was head of the Egyptian Armed Forces until 2014 when he retired to run for president. Members of the Egyptian Armed Forces are not permitted to vote. President Sisi had to choose 2 individual candidates out of a list of the 44 candidates who are competing in the Heliopolis and Nuzha constituency, as well as 1 electoral list from 4 competing lists on the ballot for the constituency of Cairo and the Middle Delta. Last month, in a speech before the first stage of the elections, the Egyptian president called on the youth, in particular, to participate and vote in the parliamentary elections. And moving on to the Daily News, which reported over 37,000 expats participated in the second phase of the elections, according to officials. The total number of votes in the second phase of the House of Representatives elections abroad amounted to 37,168 votes, with an increase of 22% compared to the first phase of the elections. Deputy Foreign Minister Hamdi Louza said on Monday that the first round of the second phase of the elections was held on Saturday and Sunday in 139 Egyptian consulates and embassies. The High Elections Commission will announce the results of the second phase. The second phase of the elections in Egypt is being held in 13 governorates on Sunday and Monday. The number of eligible voters in the second phase is 28,204,225. And now we are joined by our correspondent Ahmed Abu Hassan, who is currently in Ismailia. مساء الخير يا أستاذ أحمد.
Good evening, Mr. Ahmed. Good evening. Mr. Ahmed, how is the electoral process going on today? Can you hear me? I cannot hear.
Okay, until we fix this technical problem, we are moving on with our press review. And from Egypt Independent, we read 160,000 army personnel to secure polling stations in the second phase of Egypt's parliament elections. A total of 160,000 army personnel were deployed to protect polling stations in the second phase of Egypt's parliamentary elections, which takes place Sunday and Monday, according to MENA state news agency. The army will aid the police in securing the polls in the 13 governorates, casting their ballots on both election days from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Cairo local time. The first phase of the elections took place in October in 14 governorates. Some 185,000 army personnel were deployed to secure the first phase of the elections, along with 120,000 policemen and central security forces. Egyptians abroad already started voting Saturday and will conclude casting their ballots on Sunday at 9 p.m. local time in each country. I believe we are back to our correspondent, Mr. Ahmed Abu Hassan from Ismailia.
Mr. Ahmed, would you please tell us how did the electoral process go on today? At the outset, my greetings to you and the viewers from Ismailia Governorate while we're covering the electoral process for the second phase of the parliamentary elections during the past 2 days, yesterday and today. We can sum up the electoral process during these days in two elements. The electoral process is going on smoothly, well organized and systematic due to the continuous and fruitful cooperation between the personnel of the armed forces and the police officers in Ismailia Governorate, where the joint security officials are securing all the polling centers and polling stations in Ismailia Governorate. And the security is not just limited to the inside of the polling stations, but as well as protecting the surrounding streets so that the Ismaili citizens would be able to go to the polling stations easily and smoothly. If we'd come to talk about the turnout, Ismailia in all its polling stations are witnessing turnout, but there are differences. The third and the fourth constituencies as well as the second constituencies have witnessed turnout, and these constituents are of course affected by the tribal relations. That's why there are a lot of citizens who turned out to cast their votes so that they would be able to select their candidates. But if we come to talk about the irregularities in the Ismailia Governorate, the operation room in the Governorate did not register up till now, except one complaint that was made yesterday that a citizen was giving money in favor for a certain candidate, yet the security was able to detain this person, and the legal procedures were taken against him and he will refer to the prosecution. Yet this is the only irregularity that took place yesterday up till this moment. We can also say that the polling stations opened at 9 a.m. and the work went on systematic in it along with all the polling centers and the polling stations. There are 566 polling stations in the different cities in Ismailia Governorate. If we could come to talk about the constituency here in Ismailia Governorate, these are 4 general districts. The first is Ismailia and the surrounding districts, and there are 2 seats for the candidates in this district, and the second district is Al-Kafard and Qantara Gharb, and 1 seat is available for this district, while for the third district there is Abu Sweir city and Fayed in addition to Ismailia, and there is only 1 seat for the candidates in this district. As for the fourth and last district is for Qatartin and Al-Qum Al-Kabir, and there is only 2 seats for this district, and we can say that the total seats for Ismailia Governorate are 2 seats for the proportional lists and 6 seats for the individual. Thus we can say that the proportional list is only 1 list, as this list did not have any other one. Thus this is considered to be the only proportional list if it would get 50% of the voters and the votes in this governorate, so that it would be able to take all the seats by 100%. If we come to talk about the number of the candidates in Ismailia governorate, these are 98 candidates. If we come to talk about the number of the voters in Ismailia Governorate, they are 781,527 voters in Ismailia. We can say also that the residents of Ismailia are about 1,300,000. As for the number of the polling stations, there are 366 polling stations in Ismailia Governorate, and these polling stations are in 210 centers in Ismailia. So the electoral process is going on smoothly, as we said before, with the exception of 1 irregularity, and the ballots are about to be closed before the voters at 9 p.m. and we have talked to some of the councillors and the judges who are supervising the polling stations, and they were ready to work at 9 a.m. and in case voters are standing in front of the polling station after 9 p.m., so the polling station will go on, open its doors for people to cast their ballots. So things are going on normally, and it's expected that the ballots are going to be closed at 9 p.m. Afterwards, they are going to start counting and sorting the votes under the supervision of the judges and the councillors, and afterwards these ballot boxes are going to be taken to the General Committee in Ismailia Governorate, and afterwards they are going to declare the final results after collecting all the votes and the results from the polling stations. So we can say that this is the summary of the electoral process in Ismailia Governorate yesterday and today, and few hours are before closing the ballot boxes. Thank you. Mr. Ahmed Abu Hassan, thank you very much for this elaboration on the process in Ismailia Governorate.
And ladies and gentlemen, we move on with our press review, and we move on to the Daily News Egypt, which reported again regarding the parliamentary elections the following headline: Voters head to the polls in Egypt's North Sinai amid tight security. Voting in Egypt's parliamentary elections began in North Sinai without incident and amid tight security. Security forces transported the judges overseeing the ballots to the polling stations, with polls opening on time and voters beginning to cast their ballots. The governorate of North Sinai is one of 13 governorates where voting in the second round of the parliamentary elections is taking place on Sunday and Monday. To make it easier for locals to vote, the government decided to reduce hours of a curfew imposed since October 2014 and reduce in past months from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. to 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. The Egyptian army has been battling a militant insurgency in part of the North Sinai governorate for several years. And we have with us now over the phone Mr. Sharif Radwan, our correspondent from Kafr Sheikh, to tell us more about the electoral process there. Good day to you, Mr. Sharif. How is the electoral process going there in the second round of the parliamentary elections?
Good evening and welcome to Kafr Sheikh and this service. Now we can speak about Kafr Sheikh this evening and the last day of voting, a relative improvement and demand of the voting process reaches phase second of the House of Parliamentary Election, and the security sighting of military and police forces and the civil protection in charge of securing the committees. We can now speak about 25% of voting until now is the first perspective for the voting. A number of heads of electoral commissions in circles of Kafr Sheikh government to increase in demand began with the last hours of the end of this day. In contrast, in the case of the early hours of polling, adding that we can say that there are many of voters from young people. Everyone in the mass media is speaking about that the young men didn't or don't go to the polling or voting circuit, but now I can assure for you that many of young men from Kafr Sheikh are going now to be one or to vote for this election. And until now, there are some violations, not many violations, and that there are many security measures to prevent this violation.
Okay, Mr. Sharif, what was the major segment taking place or taking part in the electoral process? Was it mainly women or elderly people or youth coming to cast their votes?
In the early hours, we were speaking about many voters from women and old men, but now we can speak about the young men and a little of women and young men. It depends on the nation or this government. Now, I think the women or the number of women who are voting in these elections are very, very high. If we can make comparison with the numbers of men.
Okay. Mr. Sharif, did you take a chance or get a chance to talk to the voters and see how they think or how they see the upcoming parliament, their ambitions and aspirations regarding the upcoming parliament here in Egypt?
Yeah, this morning I spoke with many young men and the voters here in Kafr Sheikh. They are willing to, in these elections or the deputy of the parliament, they are seeking for some candidates or many candidates who are or have abilities to can build or rebuild the Kafr Sheikh because the infrastructure here are damaged after many rains. So they are willing or they are seeking the candidates who can represent them in the election or the parliament. They want a strong candidate, not weak candidates.
Well, Mr. Sharif Radwan from Kafr Sheikh, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for the updates regarding the situation in Kafr Sheikh. And moving on, ladies and gentlemen, with our press review, which is again covering the parliamentary elections. And World Bulletin reported the following headline: Egyptian women in parliament polls. With a high turnout of women voters in Egypt's parliamentary elections, the number of women candidates is relatively moderate in a field already staked with political female hopefuls. The first female candidate said that if there had been a quota of independent seats for women as positive discrimination or affirmative action, more women would have been encouraged to join the electoral race. There is no general quota for women in parliament according to the new parliamentary election law enacted in 2015. The law stipulates quota for the number of women on electoral lists, but not as independents, who are the most challenged majority of female candidates. Overall, there have been 282 female candidates out of 5,420 independents in this election. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this edition of The World Today, a special coverage of the program, or a special edition of the program covering Egypt's parliamentary elections. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for joining us, and do stay tuned for more updates here on Nile TV International.